as it relates to Hockey Sense. What is it you're exactly trying to do? Hockey Sense, I think, is driven a lot by purpose. Players understanding the purpose of the play, the objective of what you're trying to get out of it, and then, like I said, collecting the information and deciphering the information that best allows you to execute that purpose. I think those two things that you guys brought up, I think, are really important, and it can be used at all levels. So I got to jump off now, but I was really happy that we were able to get through that, because I think those are important pieces to continue to discuss.
Yeah, thanks, Daryl, and thanks for joining, Daryl. As you were talking there, it's been a long-term problem. I think I noticed a lot in the female game, and it may be directly related to confidence issues that many females have. They're not innately self-confident. Studies on that we've talked about in the past, and yeah, like in coaching female teams, we are always in their ear about, hey, communicate, talk, help out your partner, help out that forward in the corner, trying to figure out what to do next. Females are reluctant to do that, don't seem easily adapted to doing that, and it may be related to their own sort of, and not everyone, of course, but largely inherent lack of self-confidence on some level. But I love your concept that Hockey Sense is driven by purpose, because that is so true. What are you trying to do? How are you going to accomplish it? That's really what Hockey Sense is all about. So great. Thanks for joining again, Daryl. I know you got to jump off, but and I'm not sure who's next or if anybody's next.
Well, I just like to go on a little bit about what everybody's talking about. It's amazing the scope of development that goes on in learning to think and make decisions as a young child, and we don't teach kids to think at school. Problem solving, the Socrates method of teaching, and Jordan has talked about this. It starts with that, getting them to think, and simply the simple nature of it is, how do you get coaches from yelling, telling them what to do, embarrassing them, not giving them permission to think, to telling, where hopefully that's not demeaning, but you're still directing. And there's times they need some direction. But the degree of asking and the question that what I wrote down about Daryl was that the player has to think about, what are they doing? What's the purpose of the situation? What are the options? They have to do it to really digest the entire environment, to make an error so that they can be successful. And what I've heard in the process here is, like Al mentioned, well, he's got to work on many little details. It might be quick, close support. It might be, teaching a front foot T-stop for the support winger coming to the goal line on a breakout, being available. So anticipation and timing, all those things come in, and that's what good coaches do. They develop the skill set to keep their head up, to carry a puck, and to support one another. But now they have to allow the players to make decisions without interfering with their thinking in a way that's demeaning. And that's just the only thing I would like to add. Barry, you've got your hand up, and so does Tim, so I'm not sure who would go first there.
Go ahead, Barry.
Okay. I actually, interesting, all the stuff that Daryl said, he had to go, but just to finish off, is we try to teach kids at an early age, yes, you have to have individual skills, but try to play the game to beat another team. Like a power play is the 2-on-1. So mechanical advantage is critical. And teaching them how to end up doing that, like thinking to support your partner, whether it's on a breakout or an entry or whatever. But to go, Wally, with what you just said, and I think most of the time, years ago, I did education for that, and what was back then, how they taught us to teach kids, it was called guided discovery. So you give a kid a ball and you ask them to kick it over, through, behind, around, whatever, 100 different ways, and they figure it out. And then you, the teacher, just point out and give some directions. Well, it's almost like clothing. It comes back in style, and it's amazing that that was 50 years ago that I learned that, or 40, and now suddenly we're talking about the same concept. And guided discovery, working with what Tom did years ago with small area games and the importance of it, makes such a huge difference, because you can create game situations in small area games that fit exactly any concept that you want to talk about here, again, whether it's a breakout or an entry or net drive or whatever. So giving the players the situation and then having them work through it, and they're going to find different ways to be able to explore and get it done. Go to the fact that we don't want them to, we want them to fail, and allowing them, giving them the permission. So all the things that we've talked about this morning really do fit together when it comes down to how should we work with teaching coaches how to get to that next level. Like, the kids today are so different, we all know it, and I think the stuff that we're talking about here, it's breakthrough in one way, and yet in another, like I say, it's 40 years old. But if we just simplified things, it would end up being a lot better. I'm going to have to go in a couple minutes too, Wally. I really enjoyed today with everybody in the comments on. So take care once I leave. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Barry. One thing that's I wanted to add to, Tom's comment about Yursanov and the chat discussion with Al there on, the puck retrieval person. I think it's important to keep in mind and understand that thought by Yursanov that he wants the retrieval D to have a beat the first forechecker mentality, it has to be tied to the number one job of that D is, in Bobby Orr's own words, is to get the puck to the forwards. And the beat the first forechecker mentality versus make a good first pass mentality have to be linked. Because if you're under hard direct pressure, then your thought process maybe needs to be more on beating that first forechecker with a evasive move or skill move. If you got a little bit more time and space, then your first thought needs to be to identify where the first pass is going to go that will help beat that first forechecker. So they need to be closely linked. And again, that's going to come back to a large degree on and be dictated by communication from the off-puck players. Because as Daryl very accurately pointed out, things changed every second. And so, with my back to the play, going back for the puck, I can't see everything that's going on behind me. It's imperative on the three closest players, the goalie, the first forward back, and maybe even and your partner as a defenseman. It's imperative that those three players communicate with the puck carrier, and that sort of greatly enhances the opportunity for a good exit, clean exit. Go ahead, Wally, and you're muted.
I just wanted to relate what we've said to the playing chess 5-on-5. Like, really, we teach the fundamental skills and creating time and space, like the evasive tight turn, and getting your toes up ice with the puck to make a good first pass. And, I think we teach that well, most coaches. There's some that fundamentally don't, and the kids consequently have to learn it themselves, which is a good thing. But one thing that I saw Brad Morinka do years ago at a hockey school, which to me was like playing chess, not checkers, on breakout. They had naked breakout and did all the options. They had deliberate options, but then they practiced breakout where they had to look the other way and make a pass. So look to the winger and pass to the middle. Look to the middle, pass to the winger. And I'm wondering, Al Ramsey, with the young kids that you've got, when do you do that? At what age level will you practice that deliberately? And that's the art of coaching. It's the right stuff, right amount, right time, and of course the right way. So, Al, can you comment on everything?
Oh, I think you can start that right away, Wally, that idea. But I think so. What Tim was saying about linking those two things together, I think is 100% right. But I think we can do everything we want in practice, right, to try and teach this stuff. But in my mind, what it really comes down to is what happens in the game when the D goes back, tries to retrieve it, tries to beat the first guy, and they take it from him. Or what happens if they try to beat the guy to make a pass and the pass gets intercepted? Like how do we react when that happens in real time in the game? Like, do we make a big deal out of that? Do we try to correct the kid and say, no, you should have rimmed it, or try to you should try and get it out, or you shouldn't have tried to beat that guy by, taking a step to the side in front of the net, or whatever happened, right? Because that happens all the time. And it's often well-intentioned, right? Like trying to correct. So we need to be really, really deliberate during the games in how we talk about these kind of things, I think. Because you really, like what Tom was saying about players coming back and like trying to get them out of the mindset of rimming it around, like that starts when they're little. That starts when they're really little. Like we're seeing that already right now with kids that are playing on teams that, they've been allowed to do that kind of stuff and the way that they play versus kids who are not and will try and just unload it. Like you can see it in the kids when they're playing. So that's the first question that we need to. And Wally, that goes back to your mission statement exercise and having that conversation with the parents that this is what we're trying to do, this is what we're willing to accept, as parents and coaches, right? And this is how we're going to let the process go.
Yeah, I love that, Al. And I think the well-intentioned error is really important recognition. And I'm going to sound like the broken record that I am. Approach, outcome, response. That's how the coach needs to react. Not a yell, not a don't do that, not a what the hell are you trying to do? It's like it's a well-intentioned error. Your defenseman was trying to do the right thing. So the coach needs to acknowledge that. Hey, I know you were trying to do the right thing. What happened? What was the outcome? Oh, well, my pass was too soft. I passed it to the middle when I should have used the boards. Okay, so that's what happened. What can you do differently next time? Well, I can get my head up and look a little longer and maybe make a harder pass, or look to the middle, pass to the wing. The whole approach, outcome, response process is critical to good coaching, developmental coaching, positive coaching. And again, if people want to read about it, it's in the book, The Coaching Game by Dan Dorfman. It's just a little section, but it's a critical section.
100%. And sometimes that response is nothing. Sometimes that response is just to not say anything. Right? I mean, that's one of the things that I found really powerful this year is, sometimes the right thing to say is just to say nothing. You know, the kid's made it. He made a play. He tried to make a decision. Like you can see, he's trying. You know, to make a decision. Sometimes it's just to let them go through a bunch of reps and make that same mistake a couple of times, and then try something different, make a mistake, and then they'll get it right. You know, sometimes the best response is just to let them play.
Al, you're perfectly right. It's still Ray Parasa's saying, right stuff, right amount, right time. Sometimes you say nothing. You know, it's best not to say nothing, because now everybody here knows that. This is what I find, it's almost sad but humorous. This has been going on since hockey was played and coached. And Tim, I'm going back to Cochrane when I had about 10 mentors out there that were spending time with coaches. And a routine I followed was being on the bench for the first period and keeping track of feedback. And just doing little ticks on a piece of paper, positive, specific, positive, general, constructive, specific, constructive, general, and negative. And I only did it because I wanted them to be, they asked me what I was doing. I said, so I talked about feedback. They aren't aware of the influence they have on the children. So it just made them aware of it. And mentoring two very competitive teams at a U10 level in Cochrane, they were, I think, 1-2 in their league. And I think they would have been Adam travel teams or novice travel teams back in the whole ice day. First periods were excellent. I flipped from bench to bench. In the second period, I had an iPad and I videoed parts of the play, but mainly the voice of feedback. And I intended on sending it out the next morning. Now, in the third period of the game, everything was wonderful up until the third, and the score was like 1 goal. Then the coaches got human, the score clock took over, and a kid made a mistake. And one of the coaches, it was novice, shouted out, came to the bench. The kid came to the bench and he shouted at him, "What are you brain dead?" That's what goes on. So how do we change that? How do we influence that? So it starts with coaches' awareness, and it starts with the mission statement exercise. And I think we all know that. It's a matter of trying to get it become implemented and become a reality of the way we educate coaches. Because too many of us are doing it intermittently, and everybody on board here understands that challenge. So anything to add to that, Al?
Well, I was going to just interject there, Wally, that I certainly would totally agree with Al. Sometimes the best thing to do as a coach is to say nothing and just let it go. Obviously, that's partly determined by the level of the error, how egregious it was. It's also determined by the coach actively looking for signs in the player, especially younger players. How badly do they feel? How badly are they reacting? Is there a need for intervention to help that player get past past a really egregious turnover that he might be embarrassed about, or she might be embarrassed about? So that's an important consideration. And Wally's, right stuff, right amount, right time. Is it the right amount? Have you already spoken to the player a couple of times and helped them through situations? They're all those things. It's a delicate balance, coaching in those situations. But yeah, saying nothing is absolutely an option, especially if it's a relatively minor error without major consequence. If there's a major consequence, then the level of embarrassment of a young player is going to be higher. And then perhaps some intervention, approach, outcome, response to help them understand that, they were trying to do the right thing, but help them understand that there's a way to handle it next time, maybe a little bit differently, and maybe helps them help set their mind at ease so that they can approach their next task in a good mindset. So